Well, Hillary Clinton is out on the campaign trail, making her first appearance since the new Benghazi report. She's actually in Denver, Colorado, to focus on workforce development. She's speaking at a learning center for technology startups and entrepreneurs. And with more on politics of how the House report is playing out, we turn to Washington Post reporter Ed O'Keefe, who's actually in Washington. Ed, I want to ask you, how is this Benghazi report, you think, going to play out on the campaign trail for both Clinton and Trump?
Well, it's been a political issue ever since it launched, and I think it was the majority leader, Kevin McCarthy, last fall, who sort of encapsulated what a lot of this is about for Republicans. It was designed to discredit her, to raise questions about her tenure as Secretary of State, and it has succeeded in doing that because it contributed to the doubts that a lot of Americans have about whether or not she's been straight with them, whether she can be trustworthy, whether she, mishandled her email system, which clearly she has, based on all of the investigations and the studying that's been done of this. But bottom line, this report, which cost $7 million and took more than 2 years to put together, didn't unearth anything new that we're learning today, beyond the fact that the administration struggled in the first few days of this to explain what was going on. Clearly, there were disagreements and concerns about how exactly to respond in the moments, but that Mrs. Clinton herself didn't do anything necessarily malicious to stop some kind of a response to rescue those Americans that were in Benghazi. So, it's over. The fact that it was released before the Republican convention, I think, is a signal that they wanted to get this over with. The fact that the chairman of the committee, Trey Gowdy, has been pretty even-keeled in dealing with this, I think, signals that he especially was trying to maintain a serious investigation that at many points was muddied either by Republicans or Democrats by partisan politics. But frankly, Rena, everything in Washington these days is muddied by presidential and partisan politics.
That's
just
so
the way
true,
it is.
Ed. It truly is the way it is in the campaign cycle as well. We know that in Cincinnati yesterday, Hillary Clinton and Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, they made their first joint appearance together. So tell me, is this the start of the dynamic duo? Do you think this is a Democratic ticket here?
Well, certainly a lot of Democrats want it to be, but that's not necessarily settled just yet. We know that she's looking especially at Mrs. Warren, at Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia, and at the Housing Secretary Julian Castro from Texas. Those are the three leading contenders. But there's suggestions that others are in the mix, like the Labor Secretary, Tom Perez, or Senators Cory Booker of Sherrod Brown of New Jersey and Ohio. I think what we're seeing, though, throughout over the last few days are different contenders doing different things to sort of demonstrate that they could do it. Certainly Elizabeth Warren can fire up a crowd and defend the Clinton record, as you saw yesterday. But, Tim Kaine's awfully good at defending her as well as he did on Meet the Press over the weekend. And Julian Castro's been going around giving a lot of speeches to different groups across the country designed to demonstrate that he's a pretty dynamic speaker and could be a pretty good defender of the Clinton record. So this will all be sorted out at some point before the convention. My money is still on them waiting as long as they can and waiting to see who exactly Donald Trump picks as his running mate before she makes a decision.
See who shows their cards first. Speaking of Trump.
Exactly.
Speaking of Trump, Ed, by the way, we know that Donald Trump is actually slated this afternoon to deliver a policy speech in Pennsylvania on trade. What do you expect Trump to say?
Well, we're expecting him to outline more of his ideas on the economy, and specifically his opposition to the Trans-Pacific Partnership and to other attempts at global trade. Remember, that's been a hallmark of his campaign, certainly when it comes to his domestic agenda. But any new specifics on what exactly he'd like to do is eagerly sought by those of us in the media who struggle at times to nail him down on specifics. And I think, frankly, it's eagerly awaited by a lot of Republicans who are still skeptical about whether or not he can mount a serious attempt to win back the White House. So if he gives another good, scripted speech that lays out what he'd like to do and draws contrast with Clinton, that'll win him much more support from Republicans who are still skittish heading into that Cleveland convention.
Interesting. So your advice to him is stick to the script. Don't.
Not my advice, but that's what a lot of Republicans have been saying, that they want to see him be able to read from a script, deliver some specifics, and show that he's a serious candidate. If that happens, it'll help continue to build his support.
Ed O'Keefe, always keeping it down the middle with politics. Thank you, Ed.
Take care.
Appreciate your time.